Lauren, do you think it's about time to get started?
Yes, take it away.
Awesome. Wow, I can't believe there's 114 people here right now. That's insane. So thank you guys all so much for joining us here tonight at Illuminate. This is a night of poetry and solidarity with Asian and Asian American communities. I hope everyone is feeling cared for, or as cared for as we can during these heavy times. I'm Greer Nakadegawa Lee.
And I'm Lauren Ito, and I'm very honored to be co-presenting this event with the incredible Greer, who also is our Youth Poet Laureate of Oakland. Greer and I are co-hosting this event in response to the absolutely horrific surge of anti-Asian hate crimes, and violence impacting Asian and Asian American folks during this time. We want to name that anti-Asian hate is nothing new, but we also know that communities and BIPOC folks standing in solidarity alongside one another to fight back against white supremacy and injustice is also nothing new. The murder of 8 folks in Atlanta, 6 of whom were Asian and Asian American women earlier this week, is yet another example of the many horrors our families and loved ones and communities are experiencing. It also points to the urgency behind spaces like this one today. So to open, I want to share that you are here and you are whole. We welcome your grief, we welcome your rage, we welcome your rest, we welcome you pressing pause, we welcome your healing, we welcome your body as you are right now. To all folks who are joining us this evening, so much gratitude for being here, and please know that this space is for all of you.
Thank you for that, Lauren. We also wanted to take a moment to honor the stolen Indigenous lands that we're currently situated on and on which we're holding this event. Lauren and I are currently on Ohlone land, and Indigenous stolen lands everywhere continue to be shaped and honored by Native peoples who steward these places, histories, and vibrant futures. So thank you. And I wanted to add some housekeeping things before we get started. So first of all, live captions should be available for this event, and you can access them by pressing the closed captions button. It should just be in the bottom corner of your Zoom window. And secondly, this event is being recorded and it's currently being live streamed on the AWA YouTube channel, which we should have a link to in the chat. Yeah, and I also want to set some ground rules for our time together in this space. So first of all, we're in a virtual medium, but that doesn't shift the impact that our words have on each other. That's part of the reason that we're in webinar mode, is because if someone is being disruptive or disrespectful of anyone else, then we will give them a warning and remove them if that's necessary, which I sincerely hope is not going to be necessary. And then secondly, we really want to honor the legacies of organizing and transformation of those who have come before us across BIPOC and allied communities that sculpt how we exist in relationship with one another today. We're calling all of you to stand in solidarity against white supremacy.
Thank you so much, Greer, for opening and for those ground rules and laying that foundation. This event programming tonight, Illuminate, is presented by Political Inheritance, which is an arts exhibition that I'm curating through a fellowship with the amazing folks at the Asian American Women Artists Association, also known as AWA. This arts exhibition, Political Inheritance, will explore what's been inherited across diasporic Asian and Pacific Islander experiences that shape our communities' relationships with political action and political systems shaping our futures here in the US. The physical exhibition will premiere in summer of 2021 at the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, and I hope to see folks there. Also, thank you to the Oakland Asian Cultural Center for your support in ensuring that this event can happen. I also want to share that this event would not be possible without AWA's support. We have both Diana, Lee, and Melanie joining us on the AWA team this evening, and I will pass the mic to Diana to share a little bit more about the work that AWA is doing.
Hi, everyone. Oof, my heart is pacing just because I am so grateful for all of you making the time to join us tonight. Like Lauren said, I'm with the Asian American Women Artists Association, and we are very proud to present this very timely and significant night of poetry. I am tuning in from Chochenyo Ohlone land and want to give a shout out to some of my fellow staff, volunteers, and board members who are present here today, including Melanie. And if volunteers and board members, if you're in the attendees, please make yourself known. Thank you for being here. On behalf of AWA, I also want to acknowledge the pain and the grief many of us have been experiencing over the past few days in response to the tragic events in Georgia, along with the biased white supremacist messaging that has belittled and silenced the voices of the victims. And if you are in need of any resources or want to send your support to organizations working to stop the hate and fight for the rights of our communities, we've offered a list at the link Melanie is going to paste into the chat. And the list includes resources to collective statements, groups that support Asian and migrant sex worker rights, reporting and community safety, and a number of API-led organizations and legal services that you can learn more about and send your support to. Also, if you are able and willing to gather with others outside and in person, tomorrow at 12 p.m., the Chinese Progressive Association in San Francisco Chinatown is organizing From the Bay to Atlanta, a community art event at Portsmouth Square. And it's in solidarity with our Asian and Asian American women and communities that are under attack. So if you all are open to doing that, that's happening tomorrow at 12 p.m. And like Lauren and Greer mentioned, we would not be able to gather here today without the legacies of Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color and the continued fight for racial and social justice in our communities. There's a history of leadership, activism, and resistance that has worked to empower and inspire us to express our voice and our truth. And with that, we are very grateful to provide this as a space for all of us to collectively process and listen to the voices of the poets here today. So this particular event also kicks off a series of programs we are presenting in celebration of Women's History Month at AWA. If you appreciate what we're doing tonight, we invite you to join us. I'm just going to share my screen real quick of some of the list of events we have going on. Tomorrow, if you can't attend the art event at Portsmouth in person, we're hosting an arts panel and conversation at 2 p.m. moderated by Laura Fantoni, author of the book Local Invisibility, Post-Colonial Feminisms. This book has a whole chapter on AWA and multiple interviews with significant Asian American women artists of our time. And the artists featured in the panel tomorrow include award-winning and longtime community artist and curator Nancy Hom, illustrator, printmaker, and photographer Meena Ganesh, and one of your hosts and readers for tonight, Greer Nakatagawali. Next Saturday, we are also hosting our annual Slide Slam featuring over 10 artists who will present their work in a rapid fire format of 4 slides in 4 minutes. And the day after, we are presenting Papadum, one of our other emerging curators programs, curated by Kamardeep Singh, and it's opening in the windows of the I Hotel Manila Town Center. And lastly, during APA Heritage Month in May this year, we'll also present our next exhibition at the SOMARTS Cultural Center Sewing Agency in partnership with the Asian Pacific Islander Cultural Center for their annual United States of Asian America Festival. That was a mouthful of words, but we invite you to join us and subscribe to our newsletter to get updates. And if you're interested in learning more about AWA and want to support, you can visit our website, make a contribution, or consider joining our membership as well. But without further ado, I'll pass the mic back to your hosts for tonight, Greer and Lauren. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Diana. And thank you to AWA for your amazing work. We're now honored to introduce Community Representative Michael Locke, who will share more about responding to this moment of anti-Asian hate and the actions we can take to support each other during this time. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Lauren and Greer, for this great invitation to be part of this space. To preface this, I'm going to probably be the least artistic person speaking at this event. But hi, everyone. My name is Mike Locke. I go by he and him. And I'm representing OCA, Asian Pacific American Advocates, the East Bay chapter. OCA is a national civil rights organization with volunteer-run chapters across the country. And I'm the public affairs officer for the East Bay chapter, which primarily represents Oakland. And, as folks know, Oakland has gotten a lot of news and national news in the past few months. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But before I'm going to just to, as folks were talking about, just channeling our love and support for our brothers and sisters in Atlanta. I was hoping we could do just a quick moment of silence. You can close your eyes, you can keep your eyes open, but just try to channel that energy through the Zoom, through the air, in that direction. Thank you. So again, my name is Mike Locke, and well, first I'll talk about my day job. I work for Asian Health Services, a community health center in Oakland, Chinatown, which serves over 50,000 patients a year in 12 different languages. And we've been working not just on fighting COVID, but fighting a lot of the root causes impacted by it. And we know right now, as Lauren mentioned earlier, a lot of the issues our communities are facing as far as violence, as far as, elder violence, gender-based violence, workplace violence isn't new. These are issues that COVID didn't start, but COVID definitely has highlighted. And just mentioning a little bits and pieces about some of the work that's being done right now in these different communities. And then for just to say a few things about what we all can do, whether you do this work, during the day job or get a paycheck for it or not, whether you're out in the streets or you're making art and things like that. There are different ways that we can speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. So in Oakland, Chinatown, as a result of a large, increase in not just hate incidences, but robberies and violent crime that's happened in the area, there's been an increase of folks wanting to help. And that included, GoFundMes that came out to raise money for private security, raise money for security cameras, and as well as volunteer patrols, some who are affiliated with the groups, some who aren't, who are just walking the streets trying to help folks who are feeling afraid to go out, not just during the evening, but just during the day. And trying to channel their anger and frustrations into ways that they can help. One example I just wanted to share was these shirts that were actually designed by a friend of mine who created these shirts, and they're being sold on Bonfire. And I'm just sharing it in the chat. But the proceeds are going to the group Save Our Chinatowns, which has gone to fundraise and distribute funds to. It started out with Oakland and San Francisco Chinatowns, but has provided seed money and seed grants to Chinatowns and like API ethnic enclaves, all over the country and stuff like that. So one ways in which you can do art and things like that. But again, I'm here talking about OCA, and in OCA, and it sounds a lot similar, where regardless of what you do in your day job or in your profession, people's passion, their time, putting energy into things to voice our concerns for the community. And in OCA East Bay, we've participated in, not just virtual town halls, but meetings with public officials, with law enforcement, with community groups, and that includes service providers as well as faith leaders, and just trying to again, just break the silence, knowing that these issues of violence happen a lot in our communities, but oftentimes aren't reported and things of that nature. So, I know I didn't have a lot of time, but just wanted to say is now is definitely the time for us to, break that silence, and to be not just allies, but, co-conspirators in that, and really speaking up in different spaces. I heard when the speakers were sort of getting ready in the pre-group, folks were mentioning Asian Women's Shelter, and actually my partner is on the board of Asian Women's Shelter. But this is the time to show our supports, and that doesn't necessarily just mean funding. That could be funding, but that could be volunteering your time, volunteering your energy. I mentioned, the volunteer groups that are patrolling Oakland Chinatown. For better or worse, they have good intentions, and some of them are like folks in their 70s and 80s, folks that I know from the community, and I have so much love for what they're doing. Not the reason they have to do it, but these are our efforts that, regardless of what in the community, what's people's stance is about police and law enforcement, we know there are parts of our community that feel safe when police are around. We also know there are parts of our communities that don't feel safe when police are around. But regardless, we need more resources for our communities right now. And a lot of times in these discussions, our communities are kind of invisible. We're the model minorities. We're overrepresented in these categories, so therefore we don't have any needs. And this is all the time for us to speak up and to challenge that wherever we can. So thanks so much, everyone, for your time, and I'm looking forward to hearing the performances, which will probably be a lot more entertaining than hearing me talk. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing. And we have also put together a list of resources that folks can turn to, some of which are links that Mike has suggested, and that resource link will be shared out in the chat shortly. Louisa Liu, who is someone who is also on this call as an attendee this evening, has been an incredible collaborator in not only building out a website for this exhibition, but also building out a repository of resources. So we've collected, again, resource lists that have been put out by other organizations in doing work in this space. So we hope that this will be a place that's very easy for you to navigate in your journey, asking the question of what can I do next? And as Mike pointed out, it is not just a question of funding and donations. It is a question of how do you spend your time? How are you spending your money? Where are you physically occupying, and how do you consider your relationship to those places? How are you caring for your friends? How are you showing up for loved ones, family, asking challenging questions that must be asked during this time? So just thank you so much, Mike, for all the work that you continue to dedicate your time to. And thank you for also reminding us that there are many, many ways for us to lean in and call our folks in during this time.
Thank you so much for that, Lauren. All right, guys, it's time to get into the heart of our event. We're going to get into some poetry. So our first reader is a poet that I love very much, and she also happens to be a phenomenal visual artist, just as a little bonus. So that's Maya Looney, and Maya is a junior at Skyline High School, and she takes poetry classes in the basement of Temescal Library. She's read poems for a couple years at the Watershed Environmental Poetry Festival, which, when it's not on Zoom, takes place near a bookstore where she spends too much money on art books. Thank you for being here, Maya.
Thank you for having me. Hi, I'm going to be reading two of my poems. They're titled Nightmare and Erased. Okay. Nightmare. You're never the culprit when you're asleep. Eyes shut, mind closed in the night. Falling from Falling from consciousness feels like exemption from guilt. Pillows feel softer without a heavy head. American dreaming, cutting your losses because who cares when you can win in your sleep. Blind prophets slash and punch, but only because this is the American dream. This is the blood on the streets. This is the palms to the pavement, grass trimmed between the cracks. The city collapses inward, implodes. How quickly we forget what skyscrapers look like when they are pointed down at street corners, dangling like daggers in the clouds. This is the American dream, the forgotten arm, the sweat pulling on your temples as another article appears on your feed. It's the darkness of that street corner. It's the deciding if you're too old, too young, too much of a target, too many parts Asian, not enough parts grandmother, granddaughter, American on your own country's streets, to find out what's between the street lamps. Another one's been caught, a man charged with the wrong crime. It's hard to prosecute hate, hard to explain that as he approached in the street, the daggers shook in the clouds, shivered like icicles, and said they wouldn't care if you fell right there, right then, because the city doesn't see. And he has eyes, the man on the street. He has a family. He has his reasons. He had a bad day. He saw the city implode and thought it was a dream, where he couldn't be the culprit because he's free, and he's brave, and he's in his bed, and it's someone else's problem that they can't sleep at night. Thank you. My next poem is called Erased. Erased. She sits in a faded pink poster, smiling that shining smile, glossy enough to be vivid behind the glass. She collects dust from the window in her delicate hands. She sells glasses to the women in her store, less her store, more her being, more her image reflected in the lenses of frame samples she has never touched, may not even own. In middle school, I learned she was chosen. She was enough like Chinatown to seem real, real enough when her skin turned pearl in the sun and her hair kept its soft shine behind her ears. She lied a little when she was created, not born. There was a woman who was born and then erased over. Someone born wouldn't be quiet enough for a poster. Delicacy was created. It was redrawn, so that her skin would be precious enough to sell. It was carved from something soft and exotic, something not of these shores. When I was younger, I wondered if she watched that Taiwanese market across the street, saw all these imperfect faces, those mouths and eyes with souls, and wished she could read a history in the corners of her lips, her teacup creases, where words should have been but were erased. I wondered if she wanted to be more than a beauty without a continent, without a country, vague attraction made from mystery. Maybe she wanted to shout and kick her feet until her glasses fell off her nose, until she wasn't just more stock, just another quiet figure, fading pink in the store window. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Maya, for sharing that and for going first and kicking us off on the reader front. That line that folks are quoting, where words should have been but were erased, is so powerful. And thank you for sharing with us today. Our next reader is a dear friend, Jenny Chi. Jenny, I'm so honored that you are here with us. Jenny is the author of a debut poetry collection, Focal Point, forthcoming fall 2021. Get your copy. She's the winner of the 2020 Steel Toe Books Poetry Award. Essays and poems have been published in the New York Times, The Atlantic, Ziziva, and elsewhere. She's received fellowships from Tin House, Omnidon, and Kearney Street Workshop. Jenny mostly grew up in Las Vegas and Nashville and moved to San Francisco to complete her PhD in cancer biology. She is working on more essays and poems and translating her late mother's memoirs of the Chinese Cultural Revolution and immigration to the US. Thank you so much for being here, Jenny. Looking forward to hearing you read.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And I'm really grateful to all of you for creating this space, particularly in this week when things are so heavy. And I'm feeling more emotional than I thought I would. I'm going to read 2 poems, and I think this first one might be kind of controversial. I wrote this 10 years ago, actually, and my parents freaked out because they thought I would get in trouble for it. And this past year, I've been thinking of this poem a lot and their reaction to it. It's decision making. On November 1st, 1991, after failing to win a prestigious prize for his doctoral dissertation, Lu Gang of the University of Iowa Physics Department shot and killed the winning researcher and advising committee before committing suicide. His peers said he was brilliant, but quiet, brooding, perhaps emotionally flawed. His funny accent and tireless drive, strange in their small lab in their small town. Withdrawn, advisors said before they died, devoid of any personality. He left his aging parents' native land for lonely nights in a cold, sterile lab, and lost everything with one decision. My father stood in Lu Gang's shoes, same year, 300 miles away. Foreign, helpless against a professor's perfect English and more perfect power. He went from studying cells through a microscope to clearing cells from atop a dingy stove, ashamed to go back home. But my father didn't fling his burden out the blackened barrel of a gun, leave us to rest in the dust of his decision. And this next poem is quite long, so I wasn't originally planning to read it, but after the events in Atlanta, I'm thinking about the messages society has told about Asian women and women in general, and the ways that puts us all in danger. And this poem was a collaboration with Asian American visual artist Catalina Ouyang. Parts of this poem are direct quotes of the final section of the Title IX report generated by her university, which found her ex-partner not responsible for raping her. Machine learning. Woman is a machine of suffering, said Pablo Picasso. After considering the statements received from both parties, the panel found man's version of the events to be more credible than that of woman. He has consistently denied any guilt or wrongdoing because he believes he has done nothing wrong, and belief in privilege grants privilege absolutely. Privilege is $34 million in payouts, career sabotage by espionage, systemic fear, a presidential sum. I told my father that the president assaulted 20 women. He said he's never heard that because, of course, the Chinese news stations wouldn't report it. But the women are probably lying because the president is rich and powerful, and women will do anything for a bit of money. The panel believes, based upon man's account, that man had clear nonverbal consent, that woman indicated nonverbal consent. The panel believes the man's account of the woman's actions, having learned over centuries that woman is capricious, hysterical, seductive, shrewd, curious like a black cat, guilty of original sin and every sin, Pandora, Eve, witch who dragged guileless man out of the warmth of womb into a world of pain, built a machine of suffering. I splutter like a dying engine, my broken Chinese fuming from the pipes, insufficient to express my outrage. The panel is a machine that has been programmed to believe the man's story, to believe in the man. The algorithm tells it that man has a future whose brightness must be protected from the wiles of woman, whom the panel found to be well-spoken and verbally skilled. Therefore, she could have said no. Therefore, she would have said no. There she goes again, being outspoken, disobedient, unfeminine. There she goes again, trying to drag a good man down. In Chinese, all I manage is, how can you say that when you have a daughter? How can you have a daughter and still respect women so little? I hate when men say they condemn sexual violence as a father of daughters, but how can you condone sexual violence as a father of daughters? Probability. If you have 4 daughters, 1 daughter will be raped. The panel questioned her behavior after the alleged assault. She continued to exchange and initiate texts, invite him to her apartment, snuggle in bed together. She continued to love this man whom she had loved and trusted, who was now a part of her life, who had assaulted her. She thought, maybe she was wrong. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe if she acted normal, she wouldn't lose everything. Later, sleepless with fury, I imagine another conversation in which I ask my father, did you know that a man assaulted mom before she met you? That she loved him? That she married you to escape the shame of her violation? The panel believes that women's verbal expressions could be considered moaning by man, indicative of nonverbal consent. A woman's protests are no match for a man's insistence, a man's influence, a man's brute strength. Think of Lupita, who offered a massage so she could keep standing, said nothing after, knowing that too would be considered nonverbal consent. I don't tell my father. I panic on the bus when I realize I forgot my pepper spray. I named her Hot Rod. A man followed me down a desolate street, and I escaped into a bar, hid behind a stranger until I saw him leave. Another man approached me at a bus stop, insisting I was a runaway, offered a mattress and weed, wouldn't leave until I lied I had a boyfriend. He said, I don't believe you, but I'll go, out of respect for him.
Wow, Jenny, thank you so much for that. That was moving and intense and so relevant. Thank you so much for sharing. Sorry, I just want to like sit in that for a little while. That was amazing. Okay. Our next reader is Yumi Kim. Yumi Kim is an alumni of San Francisco State University with a master's in English and an MFA in creative writing. She is a Kundiman Fellow recipient, you'll have to tell me if I'm pronouncing that right, as well as the runner-up for the Michael Rubin Book Award in 2013. Her debut publication, Reserve the Right, is now available through Nomadic Press. Thank you so much, Yumi.
Oh, thank you. First, I want to thank everyone for, wow, it's amazing to see you all. And thank you, Lauren and Greer, for giving me this opportunity. And let's get started. This is my letter to academia. Fuck you. Fuck you, academia. Fuck your fake ass bullshit mission statement on community. Fuck you for bragging about being diverse when there's only a small amount of Asian and Latinx instructors and like one black guy in the math department. Fuck you for increasing tuition. Fuck you for letting students go into debt. Fuck you for overcrowded classrooms. Fuck you for laying off custodians and the campus dining staff during the pandemic. Fuck you for only giving a damn about changing the school mascot. Fuck you for spending thousands on revamping this college's website, yet you still have not repaired the only accessibility door for the campus library. Fuck you for not giving a shit about students who are starving. Fuck you for not giving a shit about professors who have no choice but to secretly have an OnlyFans account while you're continuing to fatten up the paychecks of the school administrators. Fuck you for viewing all international students as dollar signs for profit. Fuck you for enabling lazy counselors. Fuck you for enabling lazy professors who will shame other professors who are too nice. Fuck you for allowing toxic and abusive employees to remain, yet will immediately fuck over employees who were defamed or weakened from harassment by their coworkers because you felt they never fit in anyways and just took an opportunity to use lies and as an excuse to screw them over. Fuck you for creating classroom environments that are so dysfunctional that it more so crushes dreams rather than enlighten and encourage individuals to go the distance. So this is my letter to academia. Go fuck yourself, academia. And my second piece. Being a second generation immigrant. Being a second generation immigrant means that I am what I am, and why I am what I am is none of your business. Being a second generation immigrant means that you shouldn't yank at my love handles and the hanging fat that exists within my stomach and back, wondering how many burgers and fries I supposedly ate in order to be American size. Being a second generation immigrant doesn't give you the right to inspect my taste buds, to see why I sound the way I am and why I don't speak with an Asian accent. Being a second generation immigrant doesn't mean you can say that I'm less likely to not give you the virus. Being a second generation immigrant doesn't mean that you can label me as the better type of Asian that you're more comfortable with. Being a second generation immigrant means that I will never be fully accepted in the literary scene, despite my credentials. Being a second generation immigrant, however, means that my hands can still cusp the soil into my palms before releasing it, letting it all flow and be whisked away by the wind. Bits of dirt will remain on my hands, feeling a sense of home and belonging on this land, despite what others who dwell on this land may say about me. And my last piece, The Disobedient Poet. She performs her poetry at a local bar in Valencia Street. The crowd laughs with her humorous perspectives on how academia is just one giant trash fire. She ends with a final poem about growing up in Virginia as a Korean American, back when Korean culture wasn't trendy. The crowd applauses. A man sitting in the back of the room didn't like her reading since he felt that she isn't submissive to the traditional rules of poetry. He also feels she's the reason for the sudden spread of COVID-19. After the show was over, he added roofies to her drink while she was conversing in deep conversation with another writer. He then leaves the bar. She now feels so drowsy and so out of it. She finds herself stumbling out of the bar. She manages to enter a nearby taqueria. She slurs out, "Can I have a super al pastor burrito?" to an already frustrated staff worker. She somehow manages to get $20 from an ATM inside the taqueria since they only accept cash. The morning after, she'll find a random $5 bill and a few ones in her purse. She won't remember how she paid and retrieved her order. She won't recall on whether or not she even left a tip, but she will remember walking towards a church muni station. She'll remember feeling really sluggish, drunk, and pretty ill. She will remember taking some bites of her burrito. She won't remember how good it tasted, but will remember how comforting the hot tinfoil wrap burrito felt against her cold hands. She barely will remember getting in the M line and somehow falling and blacking out for a few seconds, She's not going to remember where exactly or how she fell. She will, however, remember what happened after the fall. A collective gasp from everyone in the train when she fell. A young man and young woman helping her get up. She somehow wakes up after those few seconds. They help her, lead her out of the train. They both gently guide her out of the Castor station. She starts to cry, and the woman reassures her that everything will be okay. They sit at a bus stop. She barely mutters out that she'll take a lift home. They wait and make sure she's in the car. She becomes incoherent again, unable to properly thank them both. She sleeps during the car ride home. The driver managed to wake her up. She can only mutter, "Thank you," feeling very embarrassed. She manages to enter her home, place her burrito inside the fridge, change it to her t-shirt and shorts. Through the Lyft app, she gives her driver a 5-star rating and a $5 tip. She sleeps but keeps waking up every hour to throw up in the toilet. The morning after, she is in so much pain that she can barely move. Her chest aches from vomiting so much. Her arms and legs feel so weak. She feels a big bump on the right side of her forehead as well. She weakly calls in sick to work. She lies on her bed. Her face flushes. She won't know that she was roofied by the man sitting in the back of the bar, but she will know to still keep on being a disobedient poet, even if it ends up killing her. Thank you, everyone.
Yumi, thank you so much for sharing those words. Wow, thank you. And I feel like the rage that was articulated, especially in your first poem, resonated a lot with me, and you were getting a lot of love and affirmation in the chat. Please, I've linked the link to purchase Yumi's book, published through Nomadic Press, which is another really amazing organization here in the Bay. So please ensure that you don't miss out on Yumi's book. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our next reader is the lovely and incredible Preeti Vangani. Preeti is a dear friend and a poet, a writer, an educator. She's the author of Mother Tongue Apologize, which is the winner of RL India Poetry Prize. Her work has been published in Gulf Coast, Three Penny Review, among other journals. She's the poetry editor for Glass, a poet mentor at Youth Speaks, and holds an MFA in writing from the University of San Francisco. So much gratitude to you, Preeti, for joining us this evening, and looking forward to hearing what you have to share.
Thank you. Shout out to Lauren and Greer and all of us who have made space for poetry this evening, despite everything that's crumbling around us. So I'm so glad for the survival in us and for the time we make in our lives for coming together. Thank you so much. There's a lot of power in collective gathering. I believe in that. And I'm still shaking from Yumi's poems, but it's a good shake. It's a shake I think that all of us need more often than we think of. So thank you. Please buy Yumi's book. Don't sleep on Jenny's book when it drops, because believe it or not, artists need to be supported. They also need to live comfortably and pay rent. So please support their work. I grew up in India, and since I've moved to the States, there have been some incredible women here today present in the room, and so many of my fellow speakers here who've made space for my work and my art through their sheer presence and all of their poetry. And I'm so thankful for them to hold me up. I'll read 4 poems, 3 short ones, and end on a longer one. Self-examination. In the brain, I met someone feminist. I took this person to a cafe and read her an Audre Lorde essay. In the brain, I sang the hard songs about motherhood and teaching my daughter Sylvia Plath and nights of spooning in bed. In the bed, I let my brain undress. I left the brain undressing, and in its blue, I saw my mother rage. I let Gloria Steinem yell at me. I dressed my daughter in full-length tights despite the high summer, despite the brain, despite the feminist brain. He could push open my thighs, or was it his fingers on my waist in passing? In passing through the hallway, he spat a slur about my ass having a brain of its own. Was it curvy or firm, rounded or doughy or fleshy? Does the cushioning of pelvic bone and skin and cheeks and eyes pushed down upon a bed make a noise? In the brain, there is noise and there is someone feminist. In the bed, there is silence. There is so much about silence I don't know yet. Does silence like to be spooned? Omitting, revising, humoring are on the guest list to gobble up this pain in bite-sized portions. In the brain, I remember to forget the number of strokes, his hand, a hammer, his hand pressing down the back of my head, my cerebellum, a structure that coordinates balance. In the brain, a tightrope I make her cross. In the brain, I am in control. Do you ever have thoughts of harming yourself? She asks. So I grew up in India, and the statistic that shocks me to date and continues to hound me in my work is that every 20 minutes in India, a girl is raped. And these are only the cases that get reported, which is a sad single-digit number. So I don't know what would happen to the hands of the clock if all cases were reported. An indefinite victim directory. She who went to watch the movie Life of Pi in broad daylight, she who seemed to enjoy it. She who was 22, she who was 59, she who went out to defecate with her sister in the farm, she who was asking for it, she who looked like she wanted it, she who wanted to be a photojournalist, a lawyer, a physiotherapist, travel the world, alive, dancing. She whose mother seemed like a prostitute, she who did not fight back, she who looked like a... She who was the 3-year-old of the raped mother, she who was collateral damage, it who was a she fetus, she who was used to being beaten at home, she who was a preemie in pediatrics, she who survived, she who didn't bring us enough money, she who was upper caste, and yet, she who was an untouchable, and yet, she who was an other backward class, and yet, she who was an extra mouth to feed, she who loved without permission, she who was born female, she who made it out, she who wrote about it. Self-portrait as first lines. My thighs are the train's general compartment, everyone get on board. The uncle who holds my waist like nursing his whiskey glass and says, you are too attached to yourself. A woman lives as a woman, observing herself from the outside. From the outside, it looked like we had a healthy sex life. The day he asked for a video of me pissing, I bought the smaller size dress to look the part. How are you still so tight? The jump to zip the fat under my jeans button, intimacy really gets me off. And the man who gropes my big bum on the bus, and the man who pretends to find his keys near his groin, a knife under my pillow where milk teeth were hidden for wishes to come true. I wish I hadn't shown him that part of me. My favorite position, low self-esteem. A girl and her razor walk into a bar. Vitamins, masturbation and poetry, love and marriage like clock hands, one chasing another, brush twice a day. I care if I'm kissed. A stand-up comic says to me, you have perfect porn star boobs. How do desire and repression mate? Always in a trial room, a series of reflections who won't talk to each other. Once again, thank you so much for making space for me. I'm going to do one last poem and pass it on. An apple a day. And a pear and a persimmon, a banana at 6 a.m. Lately, I've been eating a ton of fruits to accelerate my immunity. Pomegranate coming loose at its heart, bleeding the front page headline. Another woman raped, beaten, found without bra, breath, uterus, belongings. Fresh blood oranges I slice, dramatic as sunsets. Bitter rind on my thumb lingers, then fades like expletives elegized in my mouth. I am immune. Every 20 minutes, a girl is raped. I let the statistics sticky as a jackfruit abduct my tongue, and late show hosts shade the body of the country into safe and unsafe zones. And which country do I belong to if my country begins with my body? Do I even care? 8,000 miles away from home, I am gently breaking open segments of mandarins, arranging pips into smiley faces for the girl I babysit. Her ear of normality makes her wail at the faintest sound of firecrackers bursting on the other side of the water. I say, I'm sorry, my peachy, but tonight again, the Giants have won. The words desensitized, normal, not news anymore, lodged between my enamel-losing molars, stubborn as seeds of tamarind, sour pleasure of pulp and flesh which damaged my voice box at 9. I secretly bought that tamarind fistfuls with lunch money hid from mum as I did the story of the neighbor who begged me to show him what was under my cherry red skirt. Is stillness a kind of reacting? Have I reacted enough? Did I react the night a rom-com loving banker, blue moon and citrus lipped, held my hair captive at the back of a bar and said, call me your master? Yes, no, what did I feed him? I am immune, and is my yes, yes, yes a submission of presence, as in, here, sir, or a submission of the shame I am to feel but cannot? Or is it a tick box, checked under the pursuit of pleasure? And of course, this is not the same at all as the news today. Some say the average girl is incapable of telling what is and what is not rape. A pluot is a plum crossed with an apricot. Tangelo is a marriage of tangerine with pomelo. My body is the hybrid history of my wanton desires fucked by undefined boundaries. My ex is hashtagged a predator. My co-worker calls himself an ally. My boss circulates a new HR policy. Another girl is raped. I am immune. I carry my body an infested orchard to another candle march, hold hands with women I have nothing and everything in common with. Every, was it abuse or not, riddle raises itself as the disappointed eyebrow of the convent nun who asked me during my kindergarten interview, is this tomato a fruit or a vegetable, lady? Disbelief is the first song I picked up when I learned to unbutton my urges. I knew it as my national anthem before they could agree on a final name. My family christened me Chiku, a rough-skinned fruit. Sweetness of malt survives only in intense warmth. It is cold inside a body that knows not, was taught not, to husk tyranny from touch. I forgive me, my every unknowing, my every denial, a wail for, how could I let it happen to me? I offer my fruits, ripe, unripe, even the rot that starts much before the bruising of skin, to root deep silences, my own and the ones I loan. I pray that all the missing parts of the girl be found. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, Preeti, thank you so much for sharing. That was so raw and so lyrical, and wow, you're such a powerful artist. Thank you so much. Our next reader is your co-host, Lauren Ito. I've known Lauren for, I can't remember any timelines right now, but she's really amazing and I love her. Yeah, Lauren Ito is a gosei, that means a fifth generation person of Japanese ancestry, poet, community craftswoman, and organizer committed to advancing equity through art and design. Lauren's work has been featured by the San Francisco Public Library, the Seattle Times, Japanese American National Museum, just to name a few. Lauren, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Greer, and it means so much to be sharing the space with you. I want to shout out my friend Sujin Sung, who's who's in the event this evening, for reminding me of the power of making sure that I share my work in this space as well. Whew. This first poem is called Juice, and it was written after the first hate crime I experienced after moving to San Francisco. Words weep, connecting pen to paper, to calloused palms of cane, to cries for home out a boxcar window, to barbed wire dragging Jap blood from streets. Rid them from growing our food, everything they touch turns to ash. Rid them from teaching our kids they're planting maggots in their brains. Rid them from the laundromat on the corner. They've picked coins from my pants pocket, rid them from the corner store. I've had my eye on that lot for a decade, rid them from the house next door. Neighborly doesn't look like. Slit eyes, buck teeth, rabid scowl, jet black hair, pincers for fingers. Dr. Seuss told me so. When cracking their heads like pomegranates, pulp spatters on pavement, we go giddy. Slurp the tartness flooding streets, hand our sons and daughters silly straws so they too can taste it, engorge our bellies until we're drunk off it. Eyes rolled back, chins dripping, arms undulating with glee, we'll dance to a star-spangled night, only made for this America, in red juice, knee deep. This next poem, thank you all. This next piece is titled Anti-Asian Hate Crimes Have Increased by 1900% in the last year in New York City, and those are just the ones that are reported. No timeline begins in isolation, says one scar-laden fist to another. We resume the choreography of bloodied bodies, learning to bloody bodies, from executioners ordained by politicians who crown themselves king. We suffocate in perverted fantasies of someone else's ancestors, reaping profit from our pain. There's healing to be done here, but my fists too are screaming. This last poem is called Arrival as We, and it's one whose spirit I've been calling on during this time. Thousands of women hum in my blood, forced to play God, cradled their knives with a gentle hand, lifted gazes to the horizon and summoned air, tucked it into laugh lines, a teacup, a birthmark, a prayer, for generations yet to unfurl, knowing breath is never promised, always, especially these days, always, always. Remember this, inhaling sunrise and bird song, we never arrive alone. Thank you. And now it is my honor to introduce incredible co-host, incredible human, dear friend, and someone who very much reminds me that there is hope in the future of our young people who continue to steward this movement work. And that person is Greer Nakiregawa Ali. She is 16 years old and a junior at Oakland Technical High School. She's written a poem every day, y'all, every day for over 2 years. And she's the 2020 Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. Let me repeat that one more time. She's written a poem every day for over 2 years, and she is the Youth Poet Laureate of Oakland. Her first chapbook, A Heart Full of Hallways, is out now with Nomadic Press. You want to buy this book right now, please do. We'll share the link to do that. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to you, Greer. Thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That is a very generous introduction. And guys, we talked about Lauren like maybe not reading during this program. Like, can you even imagine what we would have lost? Like, I can't even think about it. That performance was amazing. Okay. My first poem is called From the Director's Chair. I wrote it a while ago, but it's become newly relevant because the women in particular who were shot in Atlanta just recently, their lives were more than temptation or obstacle for a white man's story. And that's relevant to this poem. So yeah, this poem is called From the Director's Chair. All my skin is on the cutting room floor. You're the director and you're cropping the shot. You're the director and you're crossing names out of the script in your red pen that marks up history and scrawls out the inconvenient parts. But we lived too, every other piece of the color spectrum. We lived and we had our love stories and we had children. We built monuments out of our neighborhoods, the way we waved and smiled on the street and knocked on each other's doors in times of crisis, we lived too. You're the director and you're telling a story about the glory of war, about heroes. You're the director and you're telling a story about a good, honest man who falls in love with a beautiful foreign woman, but you don't find it necessary for the audience to hear her voice. How do I tell the director that she lived too? I tell him, I say, she sees through her own eyes. When she lifts her arm, it moves. She did not wait, preserved in amber, for your protagonist to press play on her life and watch her dance around the room. And you're the director. You say, every story needs subjects and every story needs objects. And I point to all the crossed out faces, all the skin on the cutting room floor and say, but we are never the subjects. But we lived too, even though no one bothered to teach you that sometimes we lived and it was bloody, bloody work. We lived when no one else wanted us to. We lived despite the voices in our heads trying to colonize the body, trying to leach the color out onto the sheets, trying to make us let go of the past and dizzy us with the colorblind future. But we lived, the tired and the angry and the hungry for stories like ours. We lived too. Thank you. This is my second poem. It's called A Song That Deserves to Be Sung. I first and last read it at a event for Black and Asian solidarity, which is something I really want us to hold on to. I think the worst mistake we could make right now is forgetting the struggles that other BIPOC communities have had with white supremacy or trying to appropriate their movements. And I've seen a lot of disappointing Asian activism that does that. And we're all in this fight against white supremacy together. And I want us to have that solidarity. This poem is called A Song That Deserves to Be Sung. You feel fear, and it is a thing that never quite touches your tongue. The police say no more Chinese New Year decorations on the door if you want to avoid incidents like this in the future. And so the tragedy becomes unspeakable. There is a song for this, barbed wire caught heavy in the throat, but I do not know the words. There is this song of silence that we sing when our grief cannot be spun into something sweet, when our sadness is not presentable enough to hold hands with in public. And how do you introduce this fear to your classmates? How do you say, the police held another Black life hostage against the sidewalk and knew they'd get away with it? How do I say, there was another woman like the grandma I never knew knocked to the ground? Another act of violence the media will forget as soon as the cameras stop rolling. I have run out of compassion for the alienation of our bodies, for the unspoken subhuman status implicit in every anti-Black and anti-Asian manifesto, whether the pen is a bill or a closed fist. I am tired of this pain being too heavy a thing to bring to the table until the names are rolling past on the evening news. Today I spit my grieving with my whole chest. Today there are decades of glass bodies on my tongue, see-through women and invisible men, and 1,000 blank stares that look right past us, that pen us into nameless chapters in history textbooks. I look at you and am burst open because you are singing the same song. There is a melody for this, sticky and regretful on your lips, and it is not sweet. It is a step into the dawn. It is a museum of reckless instruments all shouting the same harmony. They tried to break us, tried to gift us the language of white supremacy through our TV screens, but we are two halves of the same splint. We are the cast wrapping around the break, holding each other's bodies sacred when no one else will. We are a song that deserves to be sung, and no one is turning the volume down. Thank you all so much.
Wow, Greer. Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm still drinking in all of your words. And We really, 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 really needed them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. And you're getting so much love in the chat. And a reminder to folks to please be sure that you buy Greer's book, also published through Nomadic Press. You do not want to miss out on continuing to follow Greer's work and her journey as she gives us words that we desperately, desperately need. Thank you. Also, thank you so much to all of our featured readers. Thank you to Maya. Thank you to Jenny. Thank you to Yumi. Thank you to Preeti. Thank you to Greer. It is such a gift to have you joining us, especially on this evening and saying what must be said in this moment. Our next part of our programming is going to be the open mic. We had an overwhelming amount of folks sign up for the open mic, which is so, so, so exciting. But before we transition into that, we know folks have been sitting for a minute. So we are just going to do a quick stretch and invite you to join us in doing a quick stretch. So you can stand up maybe. I'm gonna stay seated. You may wanna swivel your neck a little bit to loosen it up. Oh wow, my neck is very tight. We invite you to roll your shoulders back a little bit, roll them forward, maybe get some arm action in there. Yes, stretch out your fingers. Okay. And with that, we will now transition to open mic programming and hearing from some more folks who've so generously offered to read and share their words in this space. So I'll pass it now to Greer.
All right. Oh, I've been looking forward to this. Thank you guys so much. You signed up for the open mic. So just a few things to keep in mind. We had a lot of people sign up for the open mic. I'm very grateful for that, but it does mean we have to ask you to limit yourselves to one poem each. Yeah, so thank you for that. Our first reader, starting us off, is Kai Sugioka Stone. Take it away, Kai.
Thanks so much for having me. My throat is still in the last two poems. Yeah. It's an honor, such an honor to be here with all these gifted readers. I have one piece to share, and the piece I did for an intergenerational reading, and I modified it after hearing about this shooting. It's called A Quarter Japanese. I identify with the quarter, and I still don't know about the nickel and 7 dimes. Cut up the sun, it still shines. Even if the river is narrow, the wind still blows over the flat meadow of the sparrows. I watch the Sugioka ripple and the pond stepping stones. Apparently, a quarter is all it takes. Just my almond eyes, a trait my mother was always proud of. Too bad she's half-blood, a family member thought. Blood quantum rounds out fractions, right? And love without light, but a memoir of this cannot be helped. Sorry, just my almond eyes, so I can get a what are you? Validity becomes complexion. I'm a quarter. I can see it. Suddenly, under a microscope, the ground beneath your feet, the cement, the fist of blind rage, and the family I never knew lost to Hiroshima 600 feet from ground zero all become the back of my head. And now that gravity's no longer listening, I guess we'll take whatever we want, and you can call it a non-racially motivated shooting, a white victim, a kung flu, I dare you. Not a massacre, not an elder's pain. What about an elder's pain? An elder's pain? A sex worker's pain? Or a day in Oakland, San Francisco, or Chinatown without a slanderous syllable, without arrogance, of who stole the land, of who is going to be deported next, without systematically racist, white supremacist, violent promises, something America you call beholden, something beholden, something beholden cannot be beholden, this cannot be beholden, this cannot be helped. echoes from a diamond passion, twice as hard generation, even though Auntie Dora was at it, with that list, with those house chores. 7 minutes is 70 when you're 70. But when you're a Sugioka, the sun isn't down yet. And even if it is, it's not that dark outside, where North Carolina and Hollister see sideways and meet each other on the midnight lawn. And they're terrified to reach farther than grandfather, than mother, than silent servant, than 9066. They see a light at the end of the tunnel, and they can't believe in refunds. Quarters confuse people because if I'm confused about the quarter, then the whole dollar is in question. And Farewell to Manzanar equips me with Shikata Ganai, making windows never exposed, shudder and crack, and a narrative that I can't remember. But this phrase and its meaning echo across me with unpredictable, insensible, and irreplaceable cuts. The book took my lungs without telling me and wrote on my back. So I go back and make sure the state lines and ashamed eyes don't get drawn in. I see the boats of captured Asian Americans, and apart from it, the car Granddad dragged himself away in. It mattered that he was the one driving. With road mapped, wings clipped, he still thought he was flying. Through apricot orchards, white dirt tried to steal and would steal, so he'd turn in his grave before and after dying. My thoughts stumble and shamelessly crumble in and out of 3.14-sided lives, wondering what is too much or not enough of an identity. I never knew how I fit into this pie dish, and now that I've thought about it, it makes a lot less sense. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your words, Kai, and just for naming the hard truths that we're all trying to find words for. Thank you. Our next reader joining us will be Sujin Sung, and I'm very, very honored that you're going to be reading for the first time in this space. Take it away, Sujin.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I wrote this today, and I've never read a poem before, but Lauren's been a huge influence for me, so I'm very appreciative. And there's no title to this one. Hearts, reactions, loose demands for validation, monologues, apologies, plans, sans acknowledgement. Worst of all, silence. How to temper expectations to expect nothing at all, a basis set by the supremacy of tyrants, of murderers, of the unintending. A questioning I turn away from, an opportunity for culling, a cold that doesn't thaw, as hurt, it expands, seeping into spaces I never saw, self-policing how to feel grief, react, observing the policing of others on how to grieve correctly. Fuck the police. Yet here we are, insidious, living embodied proof that community policing can be effective. There is no right-shaped box for complexity. The swirling within the swirling, where I can only wish for my brain to turn off to allow myself to grieve. No evaluation, no judgment, no bulletproof evidence. My culture, my humanity, their lives, their humanity, those left behind, those making sense of nonsense and failing. May we find peace, prioritize ourselves, and be. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Sujin, for those words. I'm trying to find, oh, and yet here we are, insidious, is a line I will definitely be carrying with me long after this space. Thank you. And our next reader of the night that I'll be introducing is Pablo Guillen, and Pablo will actually be bringing a song into this space. Thank you so much, Pablo.
Hi, hold on, let me get set up real quick. 1 second. Okay. Can you all hear that okay? Or is that too loud?
Got it.
Okay, cool. Okay, hi everybody, my name is Pablo. I'm in Oakland at my partner's place. And yeah, as all of us are, I'm deeply impacted by what happened this week. And so, yeah, I don't really do poetry too much, but I do freestyle and sing and rap. So yeah, I'm gonna see what I can do. And then just thank you to everybody who's been sharing tonight. Yeah, very, very incredibly powerful, moving stories and words and everything like that. So yeah. Yeah, I don't, this song doesn't have a title, but yeah, just thinking about the folks who were killed. Yeah, so. Says say the names, don't let them be erased. Says say the names, don't let them be erased. Some people don't care, but we do. Some people don't care, but we do. We have new angels, new ancestors, calling on them all the time. New angels, new ancestors, calling on them all the time. Tell me why people have to die because you can't work out your problems. Tell me why people have to die because you can't work out your problems. So tired of this place. Why did we come here in the first place? Of course it's economics, but why did we come to this place if they hate us anyway? Say their names, don't let them be erased. No matter how they lie and spin the story like a tornado. I say, tell me why people have to die because you can't work out your problems. And then, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all for having me here. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Pablo. That was awesome. Yeah, tell me why people have to die because you can't work out your problems. I mean, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Our next reader is Noel Hassan. Noel Hassan. Yeah. Thank you so much, Noel.
Hi. My poem is called Instructed on the Principles of Me. I didn't ask for your stares or for your questioning looks. I didn't ask for you to look at me like I'm an alien from outer space. We, breathing in the same air and standing in the same place. I already told you that America is my birthplace. I didn't ask for your assumption, so just go away. When I walk down the halls, look into my modesty and tell me what you think. Don't be scared. I won't blow up the whole school in your face. I'm not a terrorist. I repeat, I'm not a terrorist. Calm down. You look so petrified. You look like you're gonna faint. I'm just a teenage girl trying to accomplish her dreams, like every normal ass kid in this world is trying to do. Why don't you see? I didn't ask for a whole interview about Muslims and Islam when I'm waiting in line to go to the bathroom. I just need to go pee. Is that okay with you? Or do I actually have to answer you because you've never seen a person like me before? Wow, okay. Let me pee first, okay? Let me urinate all my answers to your questions so I can finally rest in this room. I didn't ask for your entitled racist comments. We didn't do the terrorist acts. We were praying to Allah when it all happened. We were in shock and awe like you. Just because we look similar from the outside doesn't mean we are the same within. We're not even close to the same. Maybe you should ask yourself that question. Terrorists are heartless. You know, the ones that kill with drones, the ones who shoot first and ask later, the ones who choke the breath out of you, the ones who see colored skin and think criminal, different, other, illegal, or feel fear. Freedom is why my grandparents came here. Muslims are peaceful. Don't ever get us mixed up. Do you hear? Oh, now I can't be angry. I thought I had a right to life and liberty. Now I have to give it up for your security. Trump temporarily banned Yemenis and other Muslim countries. Wrap your bacon on my mosque doors. Let's talk about this during a swine breakfast. Stop oppressing the Muslim brothers and sisters. John Adams, your founding father, said that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a seeker of truth. Maybe you should read your own damn history, or just read what your favorite daddy said. Dysfunctional families and ignorant communities. Please forgive me if I sound really harsh, but I'm done feeling torn apart. The revolution inside of me is bubbling, so I thank God. No, I thank Allah that I am a child instructed on the principles of freedom. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Wow. And I see you're reading from a published book. Okay. That's awesome. Our next reader is Sophia M. Kamra. Yeah, take it away, Sophia.
All right, so I'm reading two short ones. This is the first one. It's called The Girls. The girls tell me don't get tubed or else you will not be able to breathe, and when you try to escape it, you realize you're not that clever. The girls tell me don't let them know what you need or else they send you away to Utah so you can get better. They teach you to hide your burden beneath slogans of positivity and compliance. The girls get tattoos on their wrists with lines that twist to remind them of what they missed when they were forced to recover. Instead, I develop scars upon my back, scars from the food they force that only ever make you feel worse when they say it's supposed to make you better. So now I look like the girl in a ditch who was devoured by bears. The girls told me the system called program doesn't care for your tears. They want results. What they get is an endless cycle of pain, forcing you to come back for more until you collapse on the bathroom floor, filling us with idle time spent hidden in agony, forcing upon us feelings that if left alone, we wouldn't have felt that many. The girls say they want to recover, just not in this way. I wanted to recover, but I didn't. In my place is a girl who cannot look at food without gagging. A reminder of the hoses they stuffed into our stomachs, always pumping until guts rain from above. In my place is a girl who thinks every day what would have happened if someone listened. In my place is a girl with scars that can never be undone. Someone jokes that treatment is like living in a communist dictatorship, and the girls agree. The girls play sexist country music, and I play the 80s in retaliation. The girls proclaim their opinions, but by the system we cannot debate. Then one by one, the girls leave from our prisons that leave them yearning to be free. And I'm left with plots we made that can't be done. Wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't be done. It needs to be done. And the system says you should be sorry. You brought this upon yourself. We are just here to help. We beg for help, and they just tighten the coils and tell you how lucky you are. Although the girls fade into figures of the imagination, I know they're out there with tattoos on their wrists to remind them where to slip when life gets too mundane. You are insane. I am insane. These scars raked across my back remind me not to stop eating, but instead not to get caught, or else I will join the girls in my place amongst the stars. And for a very different tone, here is another one that has a darker title, but it's very different tone. It's called Will to Live. We are born in the ruins of society's dreams, run our hands through steamy wakes. We dance bonfires on mountains, haunt crumbling cobblestone ruins. We call this hope, we call this home. We hear seagulls on the horizon shores and run to touch our toes to the water. Run till our feet are dry and bleeding. Run till our knees break at the thought of hoping, till we reach the shore. Breath full of zealous joy, but the waves have already pulled away. We call this sadness. We call this regret. Bind our hands with wishes, tie our feet with pipe dreams, pin plans on passing fantasies. This is what we live for, even if it's not really happening. Call this freedom, call this change. Skin melts off bone like butter, backs bent with the weight of time. Naive eyes, hint of sunlit traumas yet to come. Call this age, call this youth. Arms too heavy to hold, lips too torn to kiss, but we pick up our love-lorn bags and carry on. Never heard amongst a voiceless night, call this lonely. Our spirits leave our lives in a blink. Our spirits fade across centuries. Our bones melt to gravestones. Our breath froze into air. Call this remorse, call this death. We hold nothing in our calloused hands but summer sweet air. We have nothing to wish for but more wishes, like wool growing stronger with each needle prick turning. Will to live, will to stay upon these broken boulders, break our bones to call ourselves full or fixed, because as writers, as in those of us who drink nothing but ideas for new days, when we have energy, when we have autonomy away from our thoughts and pains, when more parts of ourselves are stronger than our tongue and our head, try to capture this joy and fear and hope and hopelessness with paper to pen, but in the end, it's only words, only dreams, leaving us only living, leaving us with nothing but will to live, because in this life, poetry is everything. Oh my God, because in this life, everything is poetry, but poetry isn't everything. Thank you.
Wow, Sophia, thank you so much for sharing that. That was so powerful. You're such an incredible performer. That's insane. Oh my God. Thank you for sharing. Our next reader is, oh my God, is Tarita. Are you here, Tarita? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I thought Avacha. I was looking at the list, and so I was waiting to see. Let's see, the host has, okay. I need to get this out of the way. Okay.
I don't think she's here.
Okay. All right. So, wow, the reading tonight has been amazing, and I'm doing this one piece that it's called Her Sermon on the Mount. I was going to do another piece, but I keep hearing the same theme, and I'm dealing with the root cause of things, and this is just where I go with it, and here we go with another murder, another killing, another, you know, and it's on and on and on. So I'm dealing with going back to why, for me, what I think, why, again and again. God, he good. All the time, all the time, all the time. He good. He watch over us, take care of us. He watched them take my baby, rape my baby, hang my baby, shoot my baby, lynch, butcher, and burn my baby, drown my baby, castrate my baby, lobotomize my baby, jail my baby, traffic my baby, imprison my baby, enslave my baby, take home, land, culture away from us and my baby, because God is good. Good. He watches over us. He watched. He works in mysterious ways. Oh yes, he does. His ways are mysterious. He good. He good all the time. God, he good all the time. He watched them commit genocide on our people, my babies, kidnap our babies, traffic our babies, shoot our babies, make them prey on our babies, prostituting our babies, raping our babies, hanging our babies, starving our babies, sending our babies to war, miseducating them, turning them against each other, babies, killing babies, shooting our babies, offering them up as sacrifices for our sins, sending them to a better place, because we born broken, don't you know? But God, he good all the time. He, and you know what he looks like, right? You know what he looks like. He good. He's good. God is, shh. Quiet, child. That God switched Habitat for Humanity off long ago. Demands insanity run his warship. Cut stars from sky, gave Ankh a hysterectomy. Now a cross we bear, death commands, we rely on his word. A will be done kills daughters and sons. Because God is not into women, earth, children, water, womb, baptism, nor is he into sun, moon, reasons to season seed cooked just right. Her mathematics, unholy. Her knowledge, a sin in this garden. Only he can be righteous. Are you listening, child? Your prayer ends with amen. A group of men casting monotheistic charms, absolving one another from fault without end. It is coming to a close. Know this, child. Dog is man-pet's friend, not woman. Don't you see? The anadrome for dog is God. Whether coming or going, this spell tells you to sit, heal, fetch, stay down, bitch, and wonder not why you're treated worse than or cannot think beyond his dependency. 3, ask, what is blasphemy? Sacrilege? What does that look like? How does it behave? Its purpose? Who pronounced judgment? What epistemic rims support the gate of this castle? Which membrane allows certain things in and certain things out for its good? Who will it serve? He good. He good. He good. All the time. The time. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Wow.
And I am also Nomadic Press, Synchronicity, the Oracle of Sun Medicine. Thanks so much. This has been amazing. I had another piece that we're gonna have to do that for another time, but
yes.
It has to do with past lives.
Oh, thank you so much, Tarita. Wow, I so deeply grateful for you bringing that poem in this space, and yes to finding another moment to hear that other poem. And we have dropped, or thank you, Kai, for dropping the link for Tarita's book published by Nomadic Press. Ensure that you get that, and she reads quite frequently around the city, so please be sure that you catch her another time. And next, I'm honored to introduce Haiti. I apologize, Haiti Tripp. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Tarita, I honor you. I am Asian American, a Singaporean Eurasian immigrant living in Minnesota, Makoche. It's Dakota for land where the waters reflect the clouds. I'm a grandmama, a mother, a mother-in-law, a daughter, a sister, and a wife. I chose this poem today to acknowledge the pain of mothers of Black sons, be they Asian mothers, Black mothers, Latinx, white or indigenous. My Black son. Can't we all get along? Rodney King's plaintive plea above the screaming sirens of police brutality. My Black sons, genitals torn from strong, dark loins and cast aside like meat to dogs. George Floyd is on the ground, spread-eagled in the dirt, blending into his skin, neck crushed by brute force, breath killed, body stilled. My Black son, hands tied and mangled body dragged by blood-splattered trucks. Ahmaud Arbery, sinewy body glistening, running for his life, hunted like an animal. In cold, gray prison cells, my Black son, chained in heavy shackles, arms pinioned tight like an eagle, powerless to fly, left to die. And this happened 100 years ago in Duluth, Minnesota, the lynching of 3 Black men. And I saw my son in them. For it is my son, my Black son, whose brown body hangs from gaslit lampposts, swaying gently in the breeze, spittled on by screams of red-eyed mobs, waiting for the twitching to stop. My Afro-Asian son, who not so long ago, it's 30 years, lay cocooned in folded uterine walls, safe for a while within my body, until that fateful journey began along vaginal tunnels to blast his way noisily in this world, a world that loved him, a world that hated him because of the flatness of his face, the shape of his eyes, the broadness of his nose, the thickness of his lips, but most of all, that terrible, terrible darkness of the color of his skin. No matter what color a mother is, her healing hands embrace, though her heart aches for the fate of her Black son. Thank you.
Haley, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really raw and that was really beautiful. And thank you so much for calling in from Minnesota too. We really appreciate having your presence here. Our next reader is Andrew Yen. Thank you for being here, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I'm so humbled hearing all of the poets before me, and I'm sure I'll feel the same way about everyone after me. Everyone's work has just been so shattering and so rich at the same time, and I'm really grateful. So without further ado, my poem has no title. Led by our noses through stainless steel identities, crafted surgically like a butterfly pinned through cork, they come scentless, pulled from a bestial oblivion, a pre-packaged proposition of harmony, a known quantity. But we're here, plotting nightly, like it's an unavoidable mission, the meeting before a desperate future. Yes, that's stress, you're right, but that's also why we're here tonight, to take form in a cadence, front face forward, and one breath, wrapped up in all of us, in community, effortlessly, singed by each other, closely, a fusion of liquefied proteins, unseparating us and beginning to describe for us power and the making of a particular revenge. When we stand, we unthicken and leak among ourselves, and then through all cracks explode. We undeny, we story, we scheme, and we fight. Justice would have dried and turned crystal if it weren't slicked again and again with blood. We all hold up this heavy chain of justices deferred, each link a cold and violent lifetime. They stole from us countless lives and have never once considered how they'll be repaid.
Oh, Andrew, I'm very struck by that poem. Thank you. And just really appreciate you naming in your poem and in the way that you shared it, this moment and this day. So thank you so much for joining. It means a lot to have you here. Our next reader will be Serena Chan, and I'm honored to pass the mic to her.
Thank you. This is a blessing to all of you listening tonight, tapping into generations of healing and ancestral wisdom and an invitation to take care of ourselves in this time. It's called Tonics for All Reasons. Steep rosebud tea for heartache, for the liver working overtime and late nights, and grieving these cycles of positive feedback in the most taxing ways, crying eyes out of tears, which stresses the liver ever more. And ginger for the fire within our bellies in this bleak midwinter hibernation. Throw some golden slices into teas, into into the wok sauteed with greens and slices of fish, barely crispy, but mostly slick and tender. I've forgotten how to be tender with myself and with all else. It hurts too much. So I distract myself and stay up late. And Mama brews me lohon goti, cracks open the hard shell with the back of the knife and blasts it in boiling water, turning amber, for tired lungs, for sleepless nights, for barely sore throats, for that may be the start of a cold. Gargle warm salt water as salty as you can take it. Swirl it into all my crevices, even if it burns a little, and zap all the germs camping out in my mouth. Chase it with a tablespoon heaping, near dripping with the syrupy sweet, minty herbal honey, junjongpebako, infused with things I know not the names of, but I do know how to tip it into the back of my mouth, the cold metal spoon on top of my tongue, to let it ooze down my throat and leave a cooling coat as it rebalances my chi, my energy, my immune system. I'll take garlic and everything all year round, simmer handfuls of cloves and oil, and drizzle that gold onto eggs over rice, onto avocado, tossing veggies for roasting, and into soups from the East and the West, from my grandmother and from the internet. And for each season, brew soups and curries and stews with turmeric and everything yellow in autumn, and dongguatong and black sesame tea for the winter. How to eat with the seasons and nourish for the next one, as these dips and changes to the weather all around me and within me as well, knowing there is something for each moment to help me feel a little better. Thank you.
Serena, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really affirming to hear. Like, thank you so much. Guys, this next reader is our last open mic reader for the night. This is our last performance. And she's a really special poet. This is Kimi Sugioka. Thank you, Kimi.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because there's a sign that says unmute yourself, and I thought it was unmuted. Okay, this has been an incredible journey tonight. Thank you all so much for everything you've offered, for your wisdom, for your heart, for your soul. This poem doesn't have a title. I just wrote it. Restless and troubled, the sibilant moon recoils above, massacres below, the covenants of conquerors. See how she weeps into cudgeled acquiescence. Blood memories saturate how the merchant marine told me that every ship was plastered with pinups of exotic Asian girls, like erotic invitations at every island port. They all look like you, he said. I dated white men who went on to marry white women. I pursued brown men who could not stop coveting white women. I stopped dating. Now I am old enough to disregard, soon old enough to be knocked down, just like that, America. Just another bone to chew on. The false, vain, and brutal mythology you created, America. You spawned in your depraved necrophiliac splicing of all of Asia, of all of Africa, of all earthen-colored people. But we do not believe in pining and bleeding for the affection of our enslavers. We hold forth, hold on, hold out. We hold our truth to be self-evident, noisy, and raucous. In our nobility, in our humanity, when dismissed, when defiled, when attacked. We are not your fetishized, sexualized, femme fatale. No. We are here to stay. On this or any land that isn't yours, that was stolen and carved into profiteered parcels we do not accede to. We are armed, cocked, loaded, and ready to rumble, America. Ready to take back the earth, sun, and moon. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh my gosh, Kimmy. Thank you so much. What a gift. We hold on, we hold out, and we hold forth. I cannot think of a better note to carry with us into the rest of our evenings. And thank you to all of our open mic readers and for everyone who joined us for this event. We know there's a million ways that you could be spending this evening, and it means so much that, again, all of these amazing open mic readers, all these incredible features, and all of these beautiful attendees who joined us this evening. And I will pass it off to Greer to offer some closing words for the evening.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, and thank you to everyone who has read and everyone who has attended. It really means the world that you guys would come through. And we're putting those anti-Asian hate resources that we mentioned earlier in the program into the chat. So that would be something really great to check out once you've processed this event. This has been really amazing, you guys. Yeah. We're all just in this fight together against white supremacy. And I'm glad that you guys are here with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all. So please, everyone, a gentle reminder to care for yourselves. I hope wishing everyone some rest this weekend. And we look forward to hopefully finding future moments to connect from shared places of joy and shared places of healing. Instead of in response to what we're currently navigating. So shout out to all the movement workers out there, and it has been an honor to share space with you all tonight. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you.